Welcome to Not Sure This Matters with Mark, a.k.a. Matt Nolan, Suits, a.k.a. Mike Ranfone, and Fish, a.k.a. Dr. Marco Lujic.
God bless.
I forgot your names.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Per Elizabeth,
Mark.
we want to be more searchable.
Yeah, you got to be able to search.
Mrs. Suits.
Yeah, Mrs. Suits, the
Moots.
showbiz, Seltzer, queen of the
Moots.
Seltzer fortune.
Oh my God. Raking it in.
Yeah, every time I make fun of Marcus in the background and then I start talking, I'm like, I wonder how much this kid fucking hates me.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, but it's like part of the show. Marcus, you know that, right?
He loves you.
For the folks at home, he's giggling.
Yeah, so Marcus is the kid that helps us with tech and Instagram and all that, and he's selling the T-shirts, making a ton of money. And he just told us that he's going to learn the keyboard and play our intro music.
Even better.
Something to look forward to.
And ladies, he's not on Bumble or Tinder.
No.
So it's the real thing or nothing for him.
Also not ugly.
Handsome guy.
Yeah, handsome fella.
guy. Young buck.
Make sure you put a picture
with
of yourself
with
up,
a
would you?
thriving business.
Yes.
He is really good at the video and editing. I mean, he's a fucking professional.
So the last video I tried to watch, the camera was pretty close to my face.
Yeah.
So I've always known that
We know what sells, dude.
I know, like I've always known I had a big nose. My dad's got one. Like it sort of
Yeah.
is what it is. But man, that was right there.
You say it's like a bad thing, though.
Well,
You have
it's
a distinguished
a distinguishing feature.
characteristic.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, but I'd rather it was like a bigger piece of deal. Everyone's like, "Oh man, Matt
Oh.
Nolan's got a huge piece of deal." I'd be like,
Yeah.
"That's right. Put the camera on that."
But people
Please.
probably already assume, too, though.
That's
You're a
true.
big guy, big nose. Like, this. Like, what else is out
Gotta
there?
have a big piece of
But
deal.
average feet. Isn't that like that's
No,
what people
but no
say?
one, no one's.
No one's looking
Yeah.
at that size.
Just buy bigger shoes. No one
Yeah.
knows.
Just like you're already jacked.
That's true.
Jacked, big nose. They're like, this guy's got everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Money, women, cool car, great dancer.
Great dancer.
Great dancer. Anyway, we digress. I hurt my back
Oh,
yesterday. Okay.
doing
It's a great question. We call that a segue.
the
I
scooter.
was doing a deadlift with the trap bar. Okay.
Yeah.
And folks, the trap bar is like the hexagon shaped cage thing that you step into to do lift the weight off the ground. And the number is sort of immaterial, but I've been trying to tell myself to go up every week, and I'd hit a weight that was really my max. But I'd done it last week, and I wanted to put a little bit more on. And I knew as soon as I lifted it up that I was like hurting myself, but I was already committed to lifting the weight up. If somebody feels an injury coming on, are you better off to like drop the weight and move on? What's the right thing to do? Because I don't I
Stop.
think, okay,
Immediately just stop.
drop it.
Yep, drop
Okay,
it. We can replace a bar.
yeah.
You know, like if worst case scenario, what's going to happen to a piece of equipment? Whatever.
I don't know, but I was super
But-
self-conscious about it too. So I thought about it after, and I said, "Man," because it was like an ego thing. Like I was like, "I can lift this up, and I can do this. I can do this." But like, I wasn't trying to show off for anybody. I was trying to do it for myself. But in that moment, I didn't want to let it go, and that's what I was wondering. Should I have just dropped it?
Yeah,
and
just
moved
drop
on?
it.
I also think lifting becomes, in essence, like any sport. So say you're a tennis player and you know how hard to hit it to get the ball to go a certain distance, shooting hoops, kicking a ball, whatever.
Yeah.
So eventually you'll get to the point where you'll 100% know, like, all right, I am at the brink of my muscles not being able to handle this weight, and you'll know exactly where to push and where not to push. Or there's some times where you're just going to go for broke. But in something like that, if you felt comfortable at the bottom
Yeah.
and then halfway up something tweaked,
Yeah. I gave
like,
up the proper
I
position.
think you just got to dump it,
Yeah.
as Mike said. Because really, what you don't want to do is have that muscle give out, and then you lose structural integrity of what that muscle's protecting, which is probably your back or your bone.
Right.
Right? And then you get a worse injury than just a slight muscle irritation.
So what is the right litmus for our listeners to say it's time to go up on a weight? Like, what's a good indicator? Is it 5 times? Is it 10 times? How do you gauge that?
It's so dependent on like the program that you're doing in the context of the goal and in context of the timeline.
Yeah.
So just use a hypothetical situation that you're literally trying to put on muscle.
Yep.
Putting on muscle is a slow process. The best way of slowing down a slow process is injury itself, and therefore we want to bias probably to volume accumulation rather than weight accumulation, even though the research says both of them kind of work the same.
Meaning that you can grow your muscles just as well if you do a lot of a little weight or a little of a lot of weight?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
there's a fairly even trade-off to, let's say, in a progressive overload program, if you were adding reps every week or weight every week, they yield roughly the same results. But that's where that's the science. The art is how do you actually deliver that to the client? What's best for the client, whether it be the exercise prescription or the particular muscle group that they're looking to grow. So there's a lot more art that is involved. But for the most part, progressive overload is the thing that we're gonna try to manipulate. I'm just a bigger fan of using repetitions over weight at this point.
And is there how important is, let's call it, posture when you're lifting weights?
Depends on the end game, right? So if you were a true power lifter, you have to move the weight. So
regardless of whatever you got to do to get the weight up.
You don't get the trophy if your posture is the best, but you don't lift the most.
Okay. But what about for you who deals with like lay people like myself and Marco?
There's a saying that we use quite often. It's like, especially when the reps get higher, it's like go to technical failure, not mechanical failure. Meaning as soon as your form starts to deviate or slow down or something about it, and this could be subjective, so there's a little wiggle room.
Yep.
But more importantly, so the coach can say, hey, did you feel when you started to shift forward?
Your back started to arch. You started to bring your elbows out.
No more after that.
Yeah,
But then it heightens your awareness so that you can self-govern. When we go to mechanical failure, meaning like what Marco is alluding to, when your muscle literally can't produce enough force to move the weight, and therefore the weight can only go down, there's a lot of problems with that, or potentially a lot of problems.
I almost called you, Marco. We know what your primary business is for age management, hormone therapy, whatever you want to call it. But do you offer like medications for people that get hurt?
Yeah, we have a wide variety of interventions we can do for like the itises or muscle strains or achy body. In my brain, I think it's and data-driven way better than even the Tylenol, ibuprofens of the world. And I truly think that some of these products aren't used as much because they would wipe out a lot of the big pharma companies.
Are you talking about peptides?
Yeah, peptide therapies, and then interventions like glutathione, NAD, vitamin C, vitamin D. I think
just
people don't realize like foundational health is always lacking.
Yeah.
And simply rebuilding your base, because if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, the human body should be able to kind of withstand all of these insults, right? And in withstanding those insults, you shouldn't really have many chinks in your armor. And all of those arise when you're just not set up with foundational chemical balance, physiologic balance, metabolic balance, and then that's when you get sick, right? So like unhealthy people by definition that are malnourished or void of hormones or void of nutrients or void of elements they need in their body, void of vitamins, they get sick significantly more than people who are foundationally healthy.
So I think of like a Tylenol or an ibuprofen or whatever as a reactive medicine, right? Like I have a headache, I'm going to take a Tylenol.
Yeah.
It sounds like what you're saying, well, if you had taken care of yourself, you wouldn't get the headache to begin with. But what I'm asking is, and maybe that is the answer. So if I called you yesterday, I'm like, dude, I tweaked my back is shaped like an S. Can you give me something for it? Is there like a peptide or like an injection somebody could take for that, like a glutathione or a vitamin C?
Yeah, there's a lot
of. Is it like, you should have been taking this for the last month and it never would have happened?
There are recovery protocols like that with a symptom coverage.
Okay,
but there's also a maintenance protocol to try to avoid that.
Fair enough.
And there's lots of off-label. I mean, the FDA doesn't like peptides. I don't really know why, and people will still argue, well, it's not a proven entity, but like the data is there to show the significance of it, and most of them you have in your body already. And it's kind of back to the whole hormone argument, like hormone replacement is bad, it causes cancer. Well, that argument's absurd because in a 12 to 18-year-old human, you're not blocking their hormones to save them from cancer.
Right.
And the same argument, like BPC is a peptide.
Okay.
And you make it's essentially an anti-inflammatory.
Got it.
And you make it in your gut. You have it.
Yeah.
So we give you more and you feel better.
That might be the exception.
Right? So at the end of the day, like, how do you argue that that's bad?
Right. You have it already. How could it be worse for you?
Right. Even down to growth hormone, the whole growth hormone kick. People are like, oh, don't use growth hormone. That'll cause cancer. Yet the same fucking people will go fast for 24 hours to increase their growth hormone. Like, you're getting the same thing.
But growth hormone is in your body already?
Yeah.
Does it make you, stupid question, grow?
No, it's once you're an adult and your bone growth plates have fused,
Yeah.
it'll essentially up your metabolic function. But the biggest thing it does is recovery. So it's as if you slept a lot and your rebound and your anabolic. So people confuse, not to get sidetracked, like anabolic stimulation is almost recovery from destruction, right? So when you exercise, you're catabolic, you're breaking stuff down, you're using nutrients, you're wasting things.
Okay.
The anabolic function of your body is rebuilding that, but in a better way.
And when I think of anabolic, I think of
Growth,
steroids.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, but anabolic should be looked at as like recovery.
But can your body produce anabolic chemicals
Yes.
on its own?
It does every day.
Okay, so thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that, because I always thought an anabolic was an outside source that you're putting in versus bioidentical is something you already have and we're trying to
I mean,
replace.
most of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the things that we're looking as recovery methods are naturally occurring substances
Medically.
in your body.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just using it in an exogenous form because we can control the doses, or he can control the doses so that you get the response you want.
Right.
Thank you
like-
for thinking I knew what exogenous meant.
Outside.
Okay, outside. How
Yeah.
about that? You could've said
Outside
that.
sources.
You and Marcus are so smart.
The stuff that you make
Yeah.
is just in an outside form.
Exogenous.
Exogenous.
Fact check.
Exogenous.
I'm at the barbershop sitting in the chair.
Love it.
Is this a song?
By happenstance, no, but if Marcus had the keyboard, we're going full circle here. God, he better know how to play. So, just by happenstance, another dude from your gym happens to be in the chair across from me, and his barber is talking to him about gaining weight. And this fella says to me on the other side, he's like, "Oh, that guy knows something about this. You should ask him." Now, I felt like I had to answer because
have
like,
to.
he put me on the spot.
Yeah.
So the kid is smaller in stature. He was like, could have been 115 pounds soaking wet.
barber.
And the barber. And he's like, I can't gain any weight. So he went into MyFitnessPal and he told him that he wanted to put on like 100 pounds in a year or something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah.
And so his numbers, when he reported them to me, was like crazy. It was like 450 carbs, 250 proteins. Kid doesn't work out. 250 proteins and like 100 something grams of fat. And I was like, that doesn't sound right to me. That's sort of like what I'm on, and I weigh 220 pounds. And like it just sounded skewed. I felt like out of place being the one to answer, but like cocktail math, if somebody's trying to gain weight, what's a good ratio in terms of macros? Because if you just look at calories, you could overload on, which is what I said to him. I was like, if you're just looking at your calories, you could eat 30 avocados and hit every number you need to hit, but you'll gain weight. But I don't know if that's the kind of weight you want to gain.
Right.
But there's like a ratio, right, for a breakdown of macros for people that are trying to do stuff.
The cool thing is the body is like really adaptable. Like it'll fit. Like think about what an adaptation is, because that's all based in like what we've talked about before, your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, evolutionary biology. So an adaptation is really about meeting a very familiar, consistent stimulus that becomes so aggressive that the body perceives it as threatening. So therefore it has to get better to face it again. So it's part of like, it's the only time where evolution is still occurring in a weight room.
Stimuli being exercise. Stimuli being the food that you put in your body.
Your nervous system is always trying to learn and get better at the thing that it comes across.
Yep.
So if you're coming across exercise, it will try its best to get better at exercise, more efficient, more effective, so on and so forth.
Adapt.
Right.
Interesting.
And if you were to be lazy, it will get better at being lazy.
What would you have said to the kid? Hey, I'm trying to gain weight fast.
I mean, if you said he's like 120
10 pounds soaking wet. Yeah, tiny little
the first
fella.
thing is like, let's check the accuracy of the numbers that you're recording.
Yeah.
Or if that was just a one day thing that you did, because at the end of the day, even if he is 100% accurate and precise, he has to eat more. So then it becomes a matter of practicality. Is it fat? Is it carbs? Because he's certainly at the top end of those numbers.
You got to think.
So are we just drinking olive oil to get more calories in it?
Right. That's kind of what I was alluding to.
They just did a study on assumed caloric intake. So if you said, "Oh, I think I'm eating 53% error rate," so like you're not even close unless you're actually tracking.
And that's what people who actually have, like, if we did it, we'd be off.
Yeah, by far.
That's what I was gonna
it's
say.
relatively impossible.
I track it. I'm sure my delta is probably like 15-20%. Because you don't always write down the handful of M&Ms you grab on the way out the door or the extra bite of chicken or whatever. I mean, you probably do, but I don't, right? For a lot of reasons. One, I forgot. Two, I don't want them to know. Like, there's a whole bunch of science behind it.
Shame.
It's science.
It's all
Shame.
How about some fact checks?
Fact check.
It's about time.
Love a good fact check.
Oreos.
Love
A
them.
serving of Oreos is considered to be 3 Oreos. Each serving is 160 calories,
12 grams of fat.
which is about 53 calories per cookie, containing 1 gram of protein, 25 grams of carbohydrates, and 7 grams of fat.
7.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not
For
bad.
3 cookies?
Yeah. Not terrible.
No, not at all.
Accountability. Accountability is the state of being answerable for one's actions, decisions, or products. It can be personal or public, and it can involve accepting responsibility or admitting mistakes.
Accountability.
Big.
It is big. It is big, and I'm trying to get
Nobody's
better at
fucking accountable to anything anymore.
it. No, there's not.
And honestly, you're never. I did a post on Instagram a couple days ago. The hardest person to be accountable to is yourself.
Yep.
And it's crazy. Like, it's real easy to be like, my bad, I did this, I did that. But then you look in the mirror and truly to tell yourself, like, you're fucking up or you're overweight or you're not working hard enough, you're not working here, you're not, like, taking care of yourself. That's really hard to do. And I think we get away with it because there are so many distractions to being accountable to yourself. Like, you can blame anything on not being accountable to yourself.
Well, you can convince somebody else that you're either doing great or you feel good.
Yeah.
Because they only care a certain amount. It's when you're by yourself. It's like, I feel great, and you're like, do I feel great?
Do I feel
Do I
great?
feel that great? Like, I don't feel.
Or
that
there's
great.
varying levels of accountability across all the things in your life. Like someone could be incredibly accountable to making sure the business is running well and his family's falling apart.
Yep.
Or
Right.
his health is falling apart.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
And
all
we
the
see that
time.
all the time. And that's where it's like they usually have better sight lines on the thing that they're accountable to as opposed to the things that they struggle with. Right? So,
I have a question about that later too. I'm glad you said that.
oh, good.
Differences between men and women.
Yep.
There's differences?
So I picked out a few.
Okay.
Sexual dimorphism is the scientific term for physical differences between males and females of a species.
Wieners.
To name a few, I skipped the wiener because I feel like we brought it up last week.
Yeah.
All right, but men.
Is that true, though?
Yeah. To Mike's point, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Women have breasts, where men have flat chests, and women are the only primates who are busty all the time, even when they aren't nursing. Most scientists think that breasts are an evolutionary tactic for attracting men. Though they're actually filled with fat, not milk, they signal a woman's bountiful ability to feed her children. Both men and women have nipples, though this is because the genes that code for nipple development switch on in utero even before the genes gear up that turn us into males or females. Huh. It's like fingernails.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
fingernails and nipples.
Interesting.
And you can
This
have
is such an
multiple
educational
This
podcast.
is-
I feel great about this.
nipples.
Men have square faces and women have heart-shaped faces because the more testosterone a man has, the stronger his brow, cheekbones, and jawline. Meanwhile, the more estrogen a woman has, the wider her face, fuller her lips, and the higher her eyebrows. Men are hairier than women because sex hormones called androgens stimulate hair growth, and men have more of these hormones. Is that correct, Doc?
Spot on.
Spot on. Another
Androgens.
plus to take an HRT.
Yeah, DHEA.
Square out that fucking jawline.
Testosterone, DHT, all androgens.
Hair. Everything's awesome.
Hair and musk.
Yeah.
That's where Marco's
Scent.
beard came from.
Musk ox.
He was bald before he started taking testosterone. Type 1 and type 2 muscles. Type 1 and type 2 muscle fibers are the two main types of muscle fibers in the human body. Type 1 fibers are slow twitch fibers, while type 2 fibers are fast twitch fibers. Type 1 fibers contract slowly and are used for long distance activities. They're resistant to fatigue and can perform more repetitions and use oxygen and glucose to produce energy. Type 2 muscle fibers contract quickly and are used for short, powerful bursts of energy, fatigue more quickly, and use anaerobic respiration, glycosis, to produce energy.
Yeah. And it's so
lot.
real. Like we could all train to run a marathon. You're never going to be the world's best marathon runner unless you just have more of that type of muscle. Like there are genetic variations in the human body that just you can't avoid them, right?
What
like
Mike
one
said females are more prone to type 2, right? I think that's what you said in the last episode.
Type 1.
Type 1. Sorry, I had it backwards. Okay.
Like, it's crazy. Even, like, we had a buddy in high school, Ethan. Like, in middle school, all of a sudden, you'd be like, let's go for a run. He'd be like 20 miles, and he wouldn't even breathe heavy.
Yep.
And I'd be like, dude,
Dying.
I can't even fucking
I haven't tied
stand
my
up.
shoes
Yeah,
yet.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, like, there are definitely people born with different things,
Yeah.
which always is my argument to metabolism. Because, like, that.
Meaning what?
So if you have variation in muscle level and you have variation in consumption of what you just said, like glucose and carbohydrates and fat, you're
Yep.
gonna have a difference in metabolism.
Sure.
So like that human can eat more sugar, this human can eat more fat, this human can eat more protein. So if we completely round it back to how that kid, the 150 pounder in the barbershop,
Yep.
stays skinny, he might in fact be eating all that. And he's just his
burning it
body's
like a
just
motherfucker.
ripping.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yep.
like, but it's a different utilization of that energy.
Makes it all that harder. Your job's all that harder because everybody's
yeah.
so different.
Yeah, the fine tuning is very intense.
This is a sort of a correction for all of us from the last podcast. Fact check.
Fact check.
Pavel Bure was not the Canucks captain.
I thought about that.
So did I.
was?
As soon as
we
we
said
I
it.
was like, it doesn't feel
Because
right.
he was he was the Russian rocket.
No. Number
He may have
10.
been the assistant, though. He
Who
may
was
have
the
been
captain?
assistant captain?
Yeah.
Trevor Linden.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Trevor Linden.
Was he ever on the Devils?
Who?
Trevor
Linden?
Linden. That
No,
I
I
don't
think
remember.
No?
there's another Linden, though.
Oh.
I don't think you're far off. There's a. I'm going to go into hockey. I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to know.
Guys, I have a couple questions that I'd written down over the last few pods that we hadn't had a chance to get to, and we also had some listener suggestions for questions. So I compiled all of them. So for our listeners that love the consistency and fluidity of our podcast, like this probably isn't their episode because I'm going to fire them off one at a time. Ready?
Yeah, go for it.
How do you consider yourselves addicted to health?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I can explain for myself. I like the feeling of health. And I don't know exactly what that definition is.
Whatever you consider
But I
health
like
to be.
I truly, really enjoy the feeling of being like put together. Like I don't feel like if somebody grabbed my arm, they're gonna twist me the wrong way. I don't feel like if I fell, I'm gonna break anything. I don't feel like I feel compact. I feel tight. I feel like I have energy. I just like that feeling,
Do you prioritize it over other things?
without a doubt.
Do you-
Yeah.
Do you feel off if you miss it?
Yes.
Do you do other things instead of it?
No, but I've gotten way more comfortable. In the very beginning of my journey, I couldn't like take a day off. I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta go to the gym
Yeah.
7 days.
Yeah.
Now I have no problem taking the day off because I know I have complete control over my body, which is the biggest part, even related to that accountability thing in the mirror. Like I have control over my appetite. I have control over my energy demands. I have control over what I'm going to do on a daily basis because of the ability to even just schedule exercise into such a regulated timing that it allows you almost more autonomy. You're not really a prisoner to it. It gives you the feeling and empowerment to really be able to explore like how much control over the rest of your life you can have.
But it's pretty prototypical addict behavior. If you take
Oh,
it,
yeah.
right- okay. All right, Mike, you addicted to health?
I don't think so because I never think of health as like I think I'm addicted, but health wouldn't be the first thing I think. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing I'm addicted to. Like I don't see it as the compelling reason why I do the things that I do.
Do you ever choose exercising over something else that might be really important?
No, I would not. I mean, I think to me, the addiction has a negative trade-off somewhere. And if we are doing it for health or for a higher purpose,
Yep.
like then that by definition is the reason why you should be doing it over all other things.
But where does the line get drawn? Like if I miss my date night with my wife because I didn't get to the gym that morning, so I decided to go to the gym that night, is that a sacrifice?
Yeah,
that
Well,
I
that's
shouldn't be
also
making?
a highly individualized situation, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But then I would say, yeah, maybe you got to kind of think about your priorities.
But I also think because we go early in the morning or like you work it into your schedule that you don't have to miss out on other stuff.
I understand that you can do it responsibly.
Yeah.
But there must be people that are spending too much time at the gym
Oh,
or
without a
spending
doubt.
too much money on health equipment and
Yeah.
fucking steroids and pills and all that shit. And where, if you can justify it any way you want,
No
the same
doubt.
way I could my drinking. I felt better, and like it made me feel social, and people liked me more when I drank. But at the end of the day, was I really doing anything beneficial?
Yeah.
Same thing with health. It's like, oh, but I look good and I feel good, and people think I run fast.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, but you haven't seen your wife in 2 days, you haven't paid your cable bill, and your car doesn't have any gas in
Right.
it.
Well, I think that's like that's the thing that you have to think about is like the trade-offs at some point. Like if you could create a balance sheet, like are you actually negative in life? Right? That's to me is the definition of an addiction.
Do you feel a responsibility as a coach or as a gym owner, or as a healthcare provider to make sure people are doing that? Or I think we talked
Doing
about
what though?
We talked about it a little bit last week. It was like we're talking about morals and ethics and sort of getting attached to your clients, right?
Yeah.
You got to draw the line somewhere. Like, my gym cost X, and here's what I'm going to teach you to do, and I want you to be successful, and I want you to be healthy, and I want you to feel good. But like, if you're like spending your money on my gym and not putting gas in your tank, like, are you supposed to know that? Like, don't you got to eventually be like, hey, like, of course, if they come and they walk in, they're a fucking wreck. You got to be like, hey, dude, you got to do something else.
I had a message, an outbound message to a former person. I was like, I don't think you should spend the money.
Okay.
You're not getting the value.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not taking it, like you're not doing all the thing. Not that he couldn't afford it.
Yep.
But it's
waste.
it's a discrepancy of like the price to value. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. You're paying more than what you're getting.
But what about,
And that's what I said to him.
do you ever see somebody that's at the gym too much and you say, hey, you need to relax a little bit?
No, I mean, it's hard. Like sometimes we don't have the sight lines of all the things.
Meaning you don't know
Like,
the
what-
external factors going
that
on?
he's missing his kid's baseball game to
Right, that's
you know,
kind of what I'm
work on his
alluding to.
biceps.
Are you supposed to find that out? And I don't know if you are. Right, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be, I mean, I think if there was a blatant disregard for something obvious in their life,
Yep.
or they said something that was, like provided insight on like, man, maybe this guy needs a little,
Something else
pump
going
the
on
brakes
here.
a little bit. Yeah.
Pump the brakes is a good term. One of the questions is, do you ever tell a client or a patient that they need to either they've diverged too much from their original goals or from what your mission statement is for your clients, that you almost bring them back to zero and reset like either all their programming or all their healthcare?
In my line all the time.
Okay.
I mean, there's many times where we need to just completely break it down to start. Like I'll have people come in and there's nothing wrong with a naturopath. I like what they do. I like their philosophy.
Naturopath is an Eastern medicine,
Yeah, like
acupuncture,
right,
all that
very
kind of
into
stuff. Reiki,
supplementation,
okay,
all that.
meditation.
But I have a lot of
massage.
people come in that are on 50 different bottles of things.
Yep.
And I can't make out which is doing what. And it's been an additive, right? So like it started with 1, and then it's 2, and then it's 4, and then it's 6 to chase, kind of almost like chasing your tail in terms of symptom coverage. So I'll just be like, listen, we're going to try our best just to cold turkey the ones that I know will not affect you in a negative manner. And then let's eliminate everything we can and rebuild our base so that we can start with a foundation that the variability is accountable. So like A plus B equals C, and I know what A is, I know what B is, and I know what C is. Rather than like A plus B and then 4 different variables that are unknown equals Y.
How much interference do people's prescriptions play on what you need to determine for their health?
Not a ton.
Okay.
Most people that end up in my office aren't like hospital deathly ill where the prescriptions are just so many and so out of control that
Right,
it's
like my grandfather who had the Monday through Sunday pill
yeah,
box.
right.
It's like a
Most
fucking
people come in
paint
with
container.
pretty straightforward things that, like, blood pressure, cholesterol,
Yep.
things like that
Yep.
are relatively easy to tease out the effects.
Is there a general demographic of your patient?
Yeah, it's pretty much like 40 and above.
Okay.
Male, female.
Yeah.
Relatively even split. And then people that the demographic is really people that want to be into their health.
Yeah.
So usually socioeconomics, they're just relatively successful in their businesses or whatever they're doing in life, and they're seeking out more preventative care than they're getting from the system.
Are they better served to come into your office healthy and they want to get healthier, or can you come in unhealthy to get healthy?
Both.
Okay.
I get a lot of very unhealthy that we get healthy.
Yeah.
And then healthy people that we make healthier. There's always room for improvement. And I think one of our biggest, almost turning into a little bit of a tagline. Mike says it a lot, and I'm stealing it from him. Progress doesn't always mean moving forward. Progress means you didn't take a step back. So like a healthy person that I can say, like I had this discussion a couple days ago. Somebody's like, well, why should I keep paying? Like I'm right where I need to be.
Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah. And I was like, I know, but you want to stay there.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So it's like your house. If you don't repaint it every X amount of years, it will eventually deteriorate.
That's right.
But right now it looks great, but you do need to keep up with it. The same with your body, right? If you do not stay on top of it, it will deteriorate. It will take a step back.
What about you, Suits? Are you better off being healthy and wanting to get healthier, or unhealthy to healthy?
For like clients,
Exercise, nutrition. They walk in your gym because, speaking for myself, my big hesitation to get into the gym world was I wasn't in good enough shape to start.
I mean, we have a pretty wide range of people coming in for the first time, and I think it is more a matter of how they entered our ecosystem. So if someone said to you, like a friend said to you, they're probably more like you
Yep.
than someone who just saw our ad or like stumbled on our Instagram and learned about us through a more higher degrees of separation away.
Yep.
That person's probably a little bit more on the struggle bus as someone that is in a referral based system. Right.
And when somebody comes in off the street who wasn't a gym person to begin with, like myself, is there a graduation or hierarchy of exercises that people learn to graduate? I think about like I was talking about the trap bar earlier. And so like I use the trap bar myself, but I've seen somebody like Marco, who's been doing it for years, uses a straight bar when he does a deadlift. Like, are there other types of exercises that people need to learn to create the right foundation?
Yeah.
And, okay.
So almost every part of our system is based on like graduating them to the next thing. So this is why, again, like a lot of gyms don't do it. I don't know why. They don't actually have a comprehensive assessment to figure out what your starting point is. So imagine if your kid is changing schools and they're like, hey, we're going to test him in English, math, science, language, blah, 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 so that we can place him in the right level of those disciplines.
Great analogy.
So we do the same thing with your movement signature, your nutrition acumen, and we try to make it objective. So there's no like, you're bad at this. It's just like, you're starting at level 1 nutrition.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we all need to know how to add and subtract if we're going to do multiplication.
Yeah.
So that's where we start. And like from an exercise perspective, it's more about the prerequisites that you need physiologically. So if your joints are mobile, if you have good tissue extensibility, if you have good neurological authority over those positions, and then we try to get to the exercise that makes the most sense for you. So that might be a back squat for someone, a leg press for someone else. It's doing, for the most part, the same thing for the intended musculature.
And I might have recency bias because I just got hurt, but when I first started, we would do RDLs just simply with reaching out my hands and bending my back. And I don't know if I gave that enough credit to teach myself the right way to do it. And now here I am putting a shit ton of weight on these things, and then all of a sudden I got hurt. What are other kind of exercises that you'll see in the gym a lot? Maybe I remember you told the story where you were at, I think, Edge Fitness one day and some kid wasn't doing an exercise correctly and you stopped him and you said, hey, this might be more beneficial for you. You must see that all the time, even at your own gym with people that have eyes on them. What are like common mistakes that you see often that are either lead to injury or just people aren't getting the most bang for their buck? The way they do a pull-up, the way they do a push-up.
I think probably the most general but accurate thing is how you're selecting weight, because you can kind of cheat an exercise and not know you're cheating. Meaning that you're moving a weight from point A to point B, but point B is not the right end point. It should be point C.
Meaning that I can grab a 20-pound dumbbell and do a bunch of incline presses, but
correct.
Like, am I actually doing anything?
Yeah, it comes down to this idea of like load management. So you're always trying to figure out the best weight for the response that you're trying to elicit through that exercise. That means you're maybe going too heavy, which shortens the range of motion, so you're not going to get like, you're doing more weight, but you're not getting more benefit. Or you're not taking the weight to a proximity of failure that's going to encourage muscle growth or tissue adaptation. So I think load management or weight selection cleans up so much bad stuff that we see. depending, and that's regardless if you're a novice or an advanced lifter.
So there's a graduation, not just in the exercise itself, but also the weights as you go up to
Yeah.
get the most bang for your
Like
buck.
I'm at the point even personally where I'm like, I want to squeeze as much as I can out of the lightest weight possible.
And that's, so is that volume?
Oh, well, it's a couple different things. Yeah. So it's volume
In terms of repetition.
Yep.
Yeah.
Volume, like how many reps you're doing, how many sets you're doing. But then there's the parameters of it. It's like how slow, what's the tempo, or is there a pause? How much rest time do you have between exercises? Are you supersetting those exercises in a competitive way?
Is it to grow? Is it to better? Is it to feel better when you're exercising and you're in good shape? Like, are you trying to grow your muscles? Are you trying to maintain your muscles? What is somebody who's at the higher level of fitness? Like, I think we've talked before about the changes are such small percentages, right? Because
sucks.
right, okay,
Yeah.
but like, what kind of goals is somebody who's advanced? What are they setting for themselves?
I can only
example.
really, I'll speak for myself, is for almost a year, 12 months, I've been trying to put on weight. Meaning I've been eating in a caloric surplus.
Yep.
Trying to encourage my body to put on as much muscle tissue as possible, and with that, obviously, trying to minimize the amount of fat that I'm gaining.
So maintain a similar body comp, but go up in muscle mass.
Correct.
God, that sounds hard to do.
It's so funny because when you asked about taking a reset,
Yeah.
my coach made me take a whole week off. It was like my first planned week off,
Yeah.
and I don't know how long.
Okay.
And I was so against it.
Yeah.
Because, it's part of my, like, what I do. And I, like, the first day, I was like, I don't know what to do with myself.
I just picture
But by
you, like, in your
Wednesday, I was
bathrobe and
like, I
slippers
needed
on.
this.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't even go to the gym to do work.
To work.
So, because I couldn't be around it.
Yeah.
So it was at first it was a hard displacement from my normalcy, and then I was like, man, I probably needed this.
Let's ask again. Are you addicted to health? Sounds like the answer is yes.
Well, again, I think I'm addicted for all the things that it provides me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it was on this, but someone was asking me about consistency. Like,
Okay.
And I think most people think of consistency as all the inputs. Like, you got to weigh your food, you got to weigh yourself, you got to go to the gym.
Sure,
And
yeah.
so those are all like, and everyone looks at them almost like, oh, you eat the same food every day? Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
Oh, you go to bed at the same time? Yeah, pretty much. But what it provides, consistency to me is the outcome that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Showing up, like, I think most people who know me, like, they know what they're going to get. I'm not coming in moody. I'm not coming in overtired. I'm not coming in hungry. I'm not coming in emotionally distressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, me showing up for my family, my friends, my coworkers, my client, like, they're getting me or close to the best version of me as much as possible. And that's why I look at it as an outcome measure,
Yeah.
not an input.
Not a bad way to be consistent.
Yeah.
Fish, you ever refer patients to other doctors, or do you try to handle everything yourself?
No,
Outside
de-
of, like, surgery or
Yeah,
you need
yeah,
a
definitely.
transplant.
There's
Oh, he does that too.
there
Okay,
are
yeah.
definitely some
In-house.
The garage.
Yeah.
we have a garage. There are definitely cases where you have to get more specialized instrumentation, or the tool bag isn't big enough that I can do in the office.
What is your specialty when people, as a doctor?
Yeah.
Right. So there's optometrists. There's
Yeah, so
GI
there's
doctors.
no true specialty label for this. It's completely not recognized by the medical gods in terms of like a certification, or because it's really going against it's a Eastern medical philosophy with Western medical intervention in terms of the ability to use pharmacology and root cause illness avoidance. And like we've talked about before many times, if you go to medical school, unfortunately, the entire push in medical school is to eventually become a doctor that prescribes medicine, pharmacology, to cover a symptom or surgery, right? There's no preventative care. Zero. Like there's just none.
Okay.
Like the nutrition taught in medical school is nutrition for sick people.
All right. So I know a lot of great doctors that are great people that
Yeah.
want people to be healthy and do well. And
Right.
they're not always like, here, take these medications, right? They want you to try to do better. So maybe that's the point of med school, but there are great doctors that are great people out there with the best intentions in mind.
Correct.
Okay.
But it would be like if you took your daughters
Yeah.
and you taught them a certain way to cook pasta.
Yep.
And that's the only way they knew how to cook pasta.
Yep.
They don't even know it exists to not cook it that way.
Okay.
Medical school is the same. So you are taught a standard of care that leads to pharmacology. So even those really great people,
Yep.
9 out of 10 of them, right? If you went to them and said, hey, my cholesterol's high, their initial intervention is a medicine.
Pill. Okay.
Rather than, and go ask these people,
Sure.
hey, what food groups or how can I adjust my cholesterol without that? This is just an example. Find out how many of them say to you, go do resistance exercise, do like a series of squats for 5 days a week,
Okay.
and come back in 2 months.
All right.
The next one is if you're hemoglobin A1C, you're pre-diabetic. Find me how many of those doctors are like, you know what? I'm not going to give you metformin. Here's a prescription for exercise. Now, that sounds stupid, right? They just came out with a big study that resistance training has better outcome than metformin in all cases. So these doctors do, but here's my point. The tool bag you take to work as a professional doctor is only filled with what you allow yourself to learn. And if the system allows you to learn that a pill is the thing coming out of your tool bag, that's what you use. So this version of medicine is very difficult to accept in the medical world because they don't really look at that as doctoring, because the doctor ego is too big to somehow settle down and be like, hey, exercise and nutrition might solve all of your problems without me needing my DEA number to write you a script.
So I appreciate what you're saying. However, are you sure that's the doctor's problem or the patient's problem? Because I would also guarantee you that 9 out of the 10 people going to the doctor's office don't want you to tell them to go to the gym for 6 months. They just want a fucking pill that's going to take their cholesterol.
Even in my office, people don't like when I get on them about their weight
Right.
or what their exercise.
Right.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. But that's the beauty of why me and Mike do this. This is not for everybody. I say it all the time. I tell people that walk in my office all the time. There's 2 barriers to entry in here: cost and your willingness to participate. If you just want medications, leave.
Yep.
And if you don't want to pay for specialized care, leave. This is not a club for everybody, right? This is different. You need to want it. And that's why I left hospital medicine. I didn't want to be around patients that I give more of a shit about their health. And I found that happening a lot. I also didn't want to be around administrators that were telling me not to tell the patients things that were harmful to their quote unquote feelings.
Yeah, ego.
Like I got written up so many times. Dr. Lujic called me fat. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And the reason you need your gallbladder taken out, and the reason you need your 5th fucking hernia surgery that's costing the system another $80,000, so you're 500 G's deep on my dime,
Yeah.
is because you can't stop fucking eating
So I love
McDonald's.
that about you. I think more people need to be told that they're fat and unhealthy and need to do something about it.
I'm
Suits,
helping
it looks
you,
like you're dying to
but-
say something.
Well, I just wanted to interject here with, I don't think Marco's statement is an indictment on the character of doctors out
No.
there.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of great doctors.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
really
think that a
good.
lot of great people are doctors. They are just either ignorant or ill-equipped to actually handle the person on an individual level, because there's nothing about the system that supports that pursuit. Like for Marco to know everything he needs to know about that client to then prescribe the correct exercise, nutrition, if he's good at that, then he's got to be a shitty doctor. Like there's only so much time
one or
that
the
you
other.
can. Yeah. But that's also why there's a team of people that have specialized skills
Yep.
and knowledge in our environment so that we can handle them at the level they need to be successful, if they want to.
I got to think nutrition and exercise, it's got to be in the syllabus somewhere in med school.
0.
Come on.
I swear to God.
Okay. That seems crazy to
No,
me.
it's like, can they walk a flight of stairs? If they can't, they have heart disease. That's exercise.
So like a high school health teacher has more knowledge of the proper nutrition than
Correct.
a medical doctor.
With 1,000%.
We got it. Marcus, put that on a poll. Give me a fucking bunch of doctors.
No, I
and
mean,
high
they
school
know
teachers.
intensive care unit. Like if you're a burn victim, we know, you got to give them more protein in terms of milligrams or grams per kilogram over time because you're helping support their system. Fine, in times of symptomatic coverage. But in times of like somebody walks in their office and they're healthy and you ask a regular doctor, what do you think this patient's macro breakdown should be to maintain their health or improve their cholesterol or their muscle building.
Yeah.
No fucking clue.
Well, the other thing is, if doctors are going to say, "Hey, you should do this type of exercise or this type of nutrition," it's usually from their own personal vantage point,
Right.
not the professional. And then you look at, okay, if that's the case, and you see so many doctors that they themselves are unhealthy,
Yeah.
then it's just something they read.
Yeah.
It's not something they live. And I think as part of this evolution of this particular type of medicine, we need strong leaders that walk the walk, because it's really hard to lead what you don't live in any walk of life. But especially if you're talking about health and you go to the paragon of health of medicine and your doctors are unhealthy and
Yeah.
they're on the same medications you are,
Yeah.
like that's a hard sell for me.
No doubt.
I mean,
No doubt.
I trained under a guy who was a very well-respected bariatric weight loss surgeon in New Haven.
Yep.
He was obese and
Yeah.
like would drip sweat and like, right? It was disgusting. And then another hospital or healthcare facility in this state just put out an ad and had a picture of the leader of their weight loss bariatric surgery program.
Fat.
And he's fat.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like, how do you do
I
that?
don't
Like,
know.
do you think he feels comfortable?
Yeah.
Like, you could see it in his eyes. He's like, fuck, I can't believe they're about to make a billboard of me.
Yeah, it's a drug counselor that still shoots dope. It's
Correct.
like, what are we talking
It's
here?
really, really sad. I feel bad.
Anecdotally, I had a friend who was like, "Hey, you look good. What are you up to now?" And I was telling him about what I do and what you guys do for me. And he was like, "Oh, I want to go see him." And I was like, "All right, but just so you know, and I think it's great. He's going to tell you that you're fat and you need to get in shape. But maybe you need to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, he's not going to give you a pill. It's going to make you lose weight. You got to get your ass in the fucking gym and do
Yeah.
something about
Work.
it."
Truth is undefeated.
No doubt. So there was a cool article, and we're running out of time, so I'll try to
Oh,
breeze
yeah,
through it. I think it was New York Times because that's like the only thing I read, but just because I want, again, crossword puzzles. That's not a shout out to New York Times.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not one way or the other. The article was about exercising, working out, and not that it wasn't a thing until about the 1970s. It opens with, there weren't many gyms, and they rarely allowed women except on ladies' days. Running shoes were barely cushioned, the sports bra hadn't been invented, and yoga mats were usually just blankets. People who exercised for fun were often seen as kooky. At the same time, heart disease had become prevalent, and diabetes and other illnesses were on the rise as Americans were driving more, walking less, and watching plenty of television.
Yep.
They credited the gym phenomenon, the exercise phenomenon in the 70s to 5 things: jogging, jazzercise, yoga, bodybuilding through Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
The question is, how much of what you two do might be considered trendy, and how much attention do you pay to trends?
I mean, what I do is definitely, you could categorize right now as trendy
I think so.
because it's a very
Fringe.
new version. It's a
Is it fringe or is it trendy? That's a very that's a
well,
tough.
it's a little bit of both. I mean,
Okay.
it's anti-establishment medicine, right? Like,
so meaning fringe not on the terms of ethical, fringe in the terms of whether it's not accepted in the global
I just think
spectrum
from
of
like
healthcare.
a notoriety stand, like it's if you polled, or maybe we could do this.
Yeah.
How many people have heard of age management before this podcast? You know what I mean? Like,
or
yeah,
before you
or
met Marco.
longevity
Yeah.
medicine.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a thing. Like medicine happened at a hospital.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's true. It's
Didn't
true.
happen at a gym.
What
But
about
that's all our whole mission statement.
Or
is
like
the
what-
future of healthcare is going to be dictated by the gym of the future. Like that's our mission statement.
Yeah.
Like we want to change this thing.
Yeah.
And healthcare, not sick care.
Correct.
The hospitals will exist,
We want to keep you out of the system.
but if you think about it, probably 70-80% of hospitalized patients don't need to be in there if they had the proper maintenance.
Preventative care.
But when is it too late? Like if you're in the hospital, never.
Never too
mean-
late. I don't think. Like, you can always.
I'm not talking about like terminal illness, but
Yeah.
like somebody can all obese people with take the X factors
I
out
mean-
of it, like generally speaking, can fat people get healthy?
Listen, 95%.
Can diabetics get undiabetic?
Yes.
95% of
100%.
diabetes is type 2.
Yeah.
And type 2 diabetes is a
man-made.
lifestyle and dietary disease. It's
Okay.
man-made disease. Like,
Yeah.
it's you just make it go away.
It's like we don't see like zebras in Africa have type 2 diabetes. Like it doesn't happen.
I mean, if you
outside of
just cut off
our construct,
Yeah.
it
our
would be a
social
real
construct.
harsh accountability play. But like, if you said, okay, if you're a type 1 diabetic, yes, you need insulin. That's clear as day.
Yeah.
That's a misfunction of your body. If you're a type 2 diabetic, you got 1 month and we're not selling you any more insulin. That's it. You're done. you'd either die
Yeah.
or fix your diabetes.
So there's
Gone. It'd be gone from the planet. Like disappear. Type 2 diabetes would fucking disappear.
I used to get hammered with the Instagram ads for exercise videos and P90X and all that stuff, and that's what I sort of consider when I think of trendy exercise. So
Yeah.
there, I think we agree that there's value in doing something, right?
Yep.
But we've talked a lot, or you have, about limiting factors or diminishing returns. And how mindful are you as a gym owner when people come in and be like, oh, I just saw this video where if I take testosterone boost X and fucking do, 100 jumping jacks, like I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. Like,
There's probably not a week that goes by that someone asks me about something they saw.
All right, good.
Especially with the prevalence of social media.
Yep.
There's plenty of health or fitness franchises out there. I won't name them.
Sure.
But people are like, oh, did you see that X is opening up down the street? And I'm like, I didn't, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Because it's the same shit that was, in the 80s.
Yeah.
It's just recycled. It's just repackaged. So the things that we do are principle based. Like we follow, like this is the general rules of physiology, biology, neurology are always going to be the cornerstones of our programming, which is one of the reasons why we kind of got away from group fitness, because it was really hard to execute that at scale.
And the best part about it, like, not to sound like an asshole, but like, if you don't want to buy in, don't. Like, we don't have to convince you to try to buy in because we know that it works.
Well, I had tried the box gym, I don't know if it's called the box gym, whatever. One of the trendy things where you go and you would be on a treadmill for 20 minutes, you would do a rower for 20 minutes, and you would lift weights for 20 minutes. And one of the biggest differences for me is I couldn't track any of my progress. I was just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that goes back to the accountability piece that we talked about earlier. It's like, all right, if you want to get better, you got to know how bad you were to begin with.
Yeah.
I made 2 quick games.
2 quick.
Okay? Because neither of them are very good. First one's, who would you call? Who would you call
Ghostbusters.
if your car broke down?
At AAA.
The dealership.
If you were drunk and needed a ride home?
Uber.
If you got really good news?
Mike.
Marco? Call you.
If you got really bad news?
Marco.
Mike.
When you found out that you were pregnant, who's the first person you called?
Oh, we
I've
kind
never
of kept
been
it on the
pregnant. Yeah, I've never
hush-hush.
been pregnant.
Okay.
The first person I told was my dad, though.
All right, there you go. That's the
Same.
answer. That's
Yeah,
what-
I
all
called
right.
my dad.
God, I can't believe you guys are the fucking worst.
No, we're not.
If
We're
you
so bad.
If you needed advice, Mike and Marco.
No.
Okay.
No. For what?
I
Yeah.
don't know, dude.
Just
Life.
random life?
You need life. You need a pickup.
Probably call my dad.
There we go.
I don't know. I'd call myself.
If you needed a place to crash.
Mike.
Yeah.
The gym.
Yeah.
If your kid needed, this one is not going to be Marco. If your kid needed somewhere to crash overnight, who do you call?
Grandma. My mother.
There you go. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
I fucking
Minnie.
hate this part of the
Just
show.
you don't hate it.
This
you
is-
love it.
If you needed to get bailed out of jail,
My
Marco.
brother-in-law, Rich.
Rich.
He won't tell anybody.
If you needed a
Marco.
wingman, Mike and Marco.
Yeah.
In or out? Ready?
Marco.
In.
Speeding.
Mike.
In.
Huh?
Speeding.
Well, I don't really
Speeding?
speed anymore. Out. My truck doesn't go that fast.
In.
Swearing in front of your kids.
In. Constantly.
I try not to,
I
but
don't-
I'm in.
I don't give a fuck.
Sunglasses inside.
Out.
Out.
Cargo shorts.
In.
In.
Volleyball.
In.
Begging your wife for sex.
Out.
Always.
Pants without a belt.
In.
In.
Shorts at a wedding.
In.
In.
Bow ties.
Out.
Out.
V-neck tees.
In.
In.
Bracelets for men.
In.
Capers.
Out.
Out.
Bread and butter pickles.
Mm.
Out.
In.
Marmalade.
Out.
Out.
Miracle Whip.
Out.
Black licorice.
Out.
In.
Clam chowder.
In.
New England?
Sure.
In.
Veal.
In.
TV in the bedroom.
In.
Out.
If you can't pet it,
It ain't Pete's.
In.
till next time.
Petey. Petey, 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 Petey.